Good afternoon. I hope you are feeling well. Had a nice dinner. Now, all of us go out and have this dinner, and we, by God, don't know what the organization has put into the stuff. For all you know, you've just been poisoned, and this could be your last hour on Earth. This is what philosophers call beliefs. We walk around having everyday beliefs. We wake up and we think, today I will be fine. But of course, these are beliefs. Now, I'm sure that the organization has put nothing in your food, but they might have. So you'll see why I talk about these beliefs, because the idea that we don't want to think, the idea that we try to avoid every day in our lives, is the idea of death. But at the same time, it fascinates us. Why? Because we are the only living beings that can imagine a world where we no longer will live in. We are the only human beings that know that one day we will die and the world will continue. So this makes the topic of death a crucial, central aspect of humanity. Because in a way, across cultural boundaries and diversity, we as humans all know that we are perishable, that one day we will die. This has made the core of my research, and it's about shocking images in art of death. And the question if in images have always performed a sacred function in society, from the caves of Lascaux to the more Christian art. And the question is there still room for this sacred function, this sacred place in imagery today, even the most shocking imagery? And I warn you, what you are about to see, don't try this at home. To shock or not to shock, that is the question. Today we are surrounded by shocking images on all kinds of places. And let me first continue with art. Arsen Savadov is a Ukrainian artist that creates sculptures of bodies, dead bodies. So these are actual dead bodies, you see. He went into a morgue and he rearranged the corpses, took photographs of them, and this artwork is called Book of the Dead. So now you can say, oh my God, he's a philosopher. Doesn't he have anything ethical to say about this? Well, I can say to you, I'm a philosopher of art, not ethics. So I can dismiss this question. Andres Serrano is an artist of Honduras, and he went into morgues and he took a complete photographical series, the morgue series, and here you see one close-up of these photographs with the kind of poetic title, Hacked to Death. But not all is in art. Even in popular culture, we see again a sort of surge or rise in horror. Horror as a genre, more popular today than ever, and all kinds of interesting movies like Saw, Hostel, torture horror. Immediately, some of you will not want to talk to me in the break after this. But I can tell you this kind of stuff has got something interesting to say to us. That is at least my opinion. Even websites, rotten.com, and again, don't try this at home, these kind of websites, you should not let your children watch this stuff. These are gruesome sites that feed the hunger to see dead bodies, to see corpses exploded, to see victims of traffic accidents and all kinds of interesting stuff. And I can end this series with one of the more recent works of Damien Hirst, Verity, that has launched a kind of controversy about should we display these kind of artworks, are they not just shocking, and what's it with these kind of artists I'm sure that they got even much attention as you will give me in the break. Not to talk to me, I mean. Damien Hirst puts his verity down, and it is a kind of statue of a woman. Half part of the woman is normal. The other part is her skeleton, her intestines, and the fetus that's in her belly. And this brings me to the point, there's a lot of discussion going on about this artwork on the internet. This brings me to the point that most of these artworks just get critique. Most of this imagery also in popular culture just get critique. And the critique goes often that they desecrate. They desecrate moral values. And another point of critique is that they only cultivate a kind of savage fantasies. Obviously, it's not my point. So let's talk about this for a moment. Let's see, is this just desecration, or are we witnessing some kind of new sacred? So we have to bow ourselves, as a good philosopher should, over the concept of the sacred. And now it gets a little bit more technical. The root of the concept sacred is the term sac. And this means the following. This means a kind of state of being put apart, separated from ordinary life, separated from the rest of the people or ordinary places. But at the meantime, it means a kind of shameful aspect in this term. So this leads to two concepts, the concept of sacer, Latin, and in this we find a kind of concept of the sacred that is really pre-Christian, that goes to say that you put something apart, it can't be touched, it's holy, but at the same time it's sinful, it has a kind of shame about it. This is the pre-Christian concept of the sacred. So there is a kind of defilement. You hear this also in the term sacrifice. Now, sacrifice is defiling, you kill something. So this is really a pre-Christian interpretation. Also, the word sanctus, also in Latin, is derived from the same root sac. And this is the Christian interpretation. And the Christian interpretation is to say that it's holy, sacred, sanctus, what you set apart, and is without sin, without shame, a kind of state of bliss. Now, obviously, what is my point? What has happened? Christianity has launched this sanctus interpretation of the sacred, and in this case, the sacred becomes something that is untouchable, saintly, without sin or shame. And this way, if you look at Western culture and the predominance of Christianity, it has cast out the scandalous. The scandalous aspect of the sacred has been cast out, has been called weird, sinful. Something we must get rid of. And this is all the work of Lucifer. More convenient. He has something of a god, but he's the devil. We cast him out, literally out of the heavens. But we all know what happened to Christianity and is still happening to Christianity. Nietzsche called it the death of God. What when Christianity loses its grip? What when this interpretation of the sacred that has dominated our Western culture for centuries gets into trouble, into a crisis? Well, then there is always our individualism, our postmodern individualism. And if God is dead, let's make man into God. Untouchable, saintly, without sin or shame. And my point here is that this is exactly the position, namely the empty God position, that Western postmodern man cultivates. It is the attraction of the God position. We like in our Western culture a kind of God's eye view. Nietzsche called it, when God will be dead, or when God is dead, we must kill off the shadow of God in the caves. Well, I'm saying with Nietzsche that we moved ourselves into the empty God position. We do it every day and we like it. I'll give you a few examples in an instant. Well, this shadow of God in culture, we cultivate this shadow of God in culture by placing ourselves in this position. What do we like in our Western culture? We like to be invisible. Don't you like to be invisible behind your computer, behind your little computer surfing the internet? Cultivating the idea, nobody can see me, but I can search for everything and see everything. Our culture is dominated by voyeurism. Look at our TV shows. Look at our TV formats. Look at which kind of movies we like. Very voyeuristic is our culture. The cultivation of the eye as a sense. Surveillance cameras. Don't we like to watch everything, but be ourselves unwatched? This is a view from nowhere. We like in our culture the view from nowhere. We like to place ourselves in a position where we can see everything, where we can watch people, but nobody can watch back. This is a look without a face. And it's a powerful look, because the look without a face that dominated our Western culture for centuries is the God's eye view. God is a look without a face. And we all maybe remember the eye of God in a triangle. Don't swear in this place because God will see you. And to illustrate that I'm not just babbling about, let's take a look at our culture. Let's take a look at TV formats, movies. Big Brother was a popular TV show in the 90s in Holland and in Belgium. It's always like that. When it's popular in Holland, it becomes popular in Belgium. Now, Big Brother was, from your living room, you could look into the lives of players of this game, and you could see all their little human aspects, and you can indulge in viewing without ever someone knowing that you're viewing this. And look at our movies. One of the most popular movie series of the years ago is this Lord of the Rings. Now you have the Eye of Sauron. The Eye of Sauron is an all-seeing eye, but Sauron hasn't got a face. It's an all-seeing eye. It's a God's eye view that can look everywhere and cannot be traced, cannot be seen back. And the ring itself makes invisible. Even more, it gives everlasting life, no aging, eternity, a godly eternity. Look at our TV commercials. Everybody's young, nobody dies. Very important. So this is my point, that we need to rethink the sacred, because evidently in a culture that cultivates a God position, in a culture that cultivates something as the untouchable, the Sanctus of Christian concept, there can be no place for vulnerability. There can be no place for frailty. So we need to rethink this sacred. We need to maybe re-embrace this scandalous, dark aspect of the sacred that centuries of Christianity have thrown out. This is why I tell this is kind of re-embracing. And what are we going to get? Are we going to return to a pre-Christian form of the sacred in art or imagery? Maybe not. Maybe we're going to get a kind of post-Christian sacred. It's possible. It remains to be seen. This is exactly the point of my research. Shocking, transgressive images and art are thus interesting. Why? Because they combine these two aspects of the sacred, not just only the Christian aspect, but the defiling, scandalous aspect as well. They combine the setting apart by the taboo or the limits that surround these kind of artworks. They are about a terrain, death, that's certainly a terrain of taboo. And they contain also the aspect of desecration, the defilement, which is a concept of the sacred itself. These artworks, like Savadov or others, they show vulnerability versus our God position, a kind of vanitas, and they show us that transgression is a more dynamic process, a danse macabre showing the sacred, not as the statical Sanctus. And I like to end with this. The re-embracing of the weird is a new interest in death, is a new interest in this taking serious of the idea that we won't think. And it's impossible as looking Medusa in the face, because honestly, life is not livable if you go out and you can't touch this food of this organization because you think, my God, I could be dead. Thank you.